Hi, good afternoon.
You see?
Good afternoon.
We're ready whenever you are. I think we may only have one today, but should be good.
That's okay. You guys are always just bullets away with us. How very clever you are with your arguments. So what we'll do is, we could. I guess we're defending the resolution. Would you like us to present first, then?
Yeah, go ahead, because we got set up to we're going to negate the concept here. I think we try to do it generally for the United States. So I don't know if I put it for U.S. in general. So we kind of have specifically for U.S., but I guess we work for other ones too. Okay.
Yeah, our comments will probably take into context Canada and the U.S. So we'll be talking about the same things roughly. Okay, so we'll go ahead. Yep. Okay. Our first speaker, Guni, if you want to introduce yourself, and she'll go first. Can you hear us good?
Yes, I can.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the reasons to believe that wealth inequality undermines democracy is because it's one of the greatest barriers denying access to the rights that should have been protected under the democratic constitution to vulnerable people. Firstly, a lower-class person has a smaller chance at a good education than an upper-class individual because that person would definitely be thinking about the meals he has to fulfill at the end of the day rather than getting a proper education. A student from a lower-class family has a high chance of dropping out of school to support his or her family, which disrupts their education. This lack of education denies that person access to jobs that the upper class and higher educated people have no trouble getting. Additionally, a lower class person whose immediate concern is money would not be paying much attention to politics and the government systems, which causes obstacles in the process of voting. Also, a lower class person with a lacking education has a lower chance of reading newspapers and listening to other media than any higher class. This lack of political information further disallows access to the democratic right to vote. Statistically, in 2008, in the U.S., people with $10,000 or lower income had a voter turnout of 49%. People with income of $100,000 to $150,000 had a voter turnout of 77%, and the richest 1% had a voter turnout of about 99%. Voter turnout was heavily biased towards high-income voters. Economic inequality also interferes with the right to stand as a candidate in elections, as the usual requirements are not met by a lower-class individual. A person needs to have financial support to stand in elections and also needs to have a high education. Both these needs are the biggest obstacles to a lower-class person wishing to stand in elections. The starting cost in presidential campaigns is $10 million, which is quite a lot. However, these obstacles are secondary as the concepts of politics are generally less likely known to a person with a low education. Income inequality survives through generations as it gets harder and harder for lower-class people to rise out of poverty. Proof enough for this fact, a child born into poverty in 1946 had a 50% chance of scaling the income ladder into the middle class. In 1980, the chances were 40%, and in 2015, the chances were 33%. This statistic shows that wealth inequality is increasing and denying access to the basic rights to the poor. The cycle of poverty prevents these people from climbing up the economic ladder. Furthermore, to cover the financial support that political campaigns demand, billions of dollars are collected through fundraisers. Obviously, rich and upper-class people are more involved in politics and are therefore the biggest contributors in these fundraisers. Why do they fund these campaigns, and what do they have to gain? When the elections are over, the parties that they funded will consider them and their opinion over anyone else, including poor people. Also, if the parties are funded by the richer part of society, the messages sent to the rest of the society are also influenced by them, directly limiting the choice of the poor. In other words, in these fundraisers, not only the campaigns, but the messages being displayed are also funded by the upper class. This proves unfairness, as the upper class gets more choices limiting the choices of the lower class. One of the most critical aspects of wealth inequality negatively impacting democracy is at the voting booth. One of the most critical exercises a citizen can take part in is the exercise of his or her franchise. When that is legislatively limited by laws that target those in poverty, we can demonstrably claim that wealth inequality has indeed injured democracy. The Fair Elections Act, passed by Canadian Parliament in 2014, changed voter laws in stating that one may not vouch for somebody's ID. One must have ID with both picture and home address. You cannot use the mailed out voting card to prove your ID, even though your ID is on it, and many voters have used it in the past. This presents a direct hindrance to our homeless and Aboriginals in northern communities who do not have access to government services that would normally provide IDs. It essentially further targets the very persons for whom democracy poses the greatest challenge. In 2011, over 120,000 voters were denied the right to vote in Canada's elections due to these new regulations, and that only represents who voted, which met a record low of 61% of the population. In a sense, the Fair Elections Act unjustly affects the impoverished in Canada. Moreover, within this same act, the wealthy in Canada were favored by increasing the allowable individual contributions to political parties and individuals' candidates to $6,000 per person. And party leaders are permitted to contribute to their own campaigns up to $25,000. This, again, demonstrates a favorable condition for wealthy people over the poor who can more actively participate in the election process. One might say that financing a politician or party is also an expression of political freedom, and therefore should not be curtailed. But when that freedom, in this case to financially contribute to a campaign, advantages a small part of the population to such a drastic extent and thereby alienates the majority who have no reasonable prospects of enjoying the same advantage, then we must ask a fundamental question about the balance of our freedoms. We cannot allow a freedom that so thoroughly excludes the majority of the electorate. Moreover, this whole set of circumstances has occurred that is the commodification of the democratic process due with disparity. I would now like to turn my attention to a similar circumstance in the United States. Super PACs, a phenomenon made possible by Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission, have ensured to an even greater extent than in Canada that the democratic system is sold and bought by the highest bidder in the United States. I would like to cite the United States Supreme Court's recognized in Austin, Fifth Michigan Chamber of Commerce that the government had a compelling interest in protecting our democracy from the corrosive and distorting effects of immense aggregations of wealth that are accumulated with the help of the corporate firm and that have little or no correlation to the public support for the corporation's political ideas. This is the essence of our argument. As financial contributors to parties grow and grow, there can be little wonder at the fact that those with money have an immense and undemocratic level of influence over a government that was supposed to be, quote, of the people, by the people, and for the people. The decision in favor of Citizens United has allowed for a level of contributions to political parties that, while they must be independent of individuals in a two-party system, inevitably end up funding the nominee of choice. Is such that politicians have much more to gain courting the votes of the elite and the few. One must also note that if raising money becomes the primary concern of politicians, what time do they have, or interest for that matter, in working on the matters that most affect their citizens who, while they may not be able to afford to fund political campaigns, have paid for the service of their elected official with a vote? Wealth inequality affects choice as well. If the mechanisms of the party system in both our countries and the mechanisms of the democratic process are so inextricably linked to money, then what hope does a candidate without the connections or financial backing have in convincing the public of his or her ideas? Especially when those ideas may be unfairly drowned out, not by superior arguments, but by the vastly overfunded advertising of another well-funded party. One need to look no further than the many American citizens of the Republican Party who are favoring an independent candidate in their
We're
currently
muted.
Right.
Can you hear us right now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I thought we were muted. My bad. Continue. Sorry about
in their currently primary election. And the irony is not lost on us that the candidate is a billionaire. But the point remains that he is enjoying his popularity partly due to a groundswell support of a candidate that is outside of a system that many voters feel disenfranchised by, and disenfranchised in large part by their financial insecurity. This effect can even be seen in Canada to a certain degree by noting the rapid rise of the eagerly flaunted Green Party. If it were not for the unfair current structure that favors traditional parties with greater resources of wealth, parties such as the Green Party in Canada, or even our array of communist parties might have equal footing in public debate and formation of public policy. To conclude, the democratic process has been commodified, the elites buy and politicians sell their influence to the detriment of the rest of their constituency, which is to say, an equal distribution of wealth is determinately harming democracy.
Okay, thanks. The floor is yours.
Okay, I'll go with my first speech then. I reject the proposition that in the United States, wealth inequality is detrimental to democratic ideals because we should focus on the general welfare of the people, of the nation, which is to provide the most good for society. Now, inequality is good. In the first place, growing inequality is the most frequently the flip side of growing, not shrinking opportunity. In fact, inequality is the mechanism through which the market generates and spreads innovation, attracts new innovators, and the initial innovation and improvement on it in the process then generates many new opportunities. Now, the United States does not have more income inequality as said. Now, income for the average family has stagnated, is just a myth. Here's an off-code statistic from 1979 to 2007. Taxpayers' median real income before taxes and before government transfer rose only by 3.2%. Again, this is just a myth. Now, Cornell University economist Richard Barkshower via Greg Matthew shows that if we combine the income of all taxpayers within each household to get the household median income, that meager 3.2% rises to a bit more of a respectable 12.5%. Finally, if we add the value of the employer into 36.7%, we can see that even though the myths exist, clearly the real income for the average household has actually increased over a third over the past 30 years. Now, without wealth inequality, the country would be worse off. But is income inequality truly a problem? John Tamny, a political economy editor at Forbes, doesn't think so. Tamny argues that the disparity between the wealthy and the poor has been a driving force in the American innovation in his latest book, Popular Economics and What the Rolling Stones, Downtown Abbey, and LeBron James Can Teach You About Economics. Clearly, the inequality of wealth in this country points to a healthy economy and a society that continues to provide opportunity for the advancement of those willing to work hard. Now, one of the arguments that the opponent has made was that they were following rulings made from the Supreme Court. Let me remind you that the Supreme Court's job is to follow and uphold the Constitution. Now, our Constitution, of course, was made by our founding fathers, and the initial intent of the founding fathers was to give right to those of the elite class. Why? Because they knew that when people of the elite class had power, our economy would be much greater and healthy, making the well-being of our country stable and our citizens happy. Now, political inequality in the U.S. only happens when there is a lack of participation. In one of the arguments made by the opponent, someone argued that political inequality happened due to the income inequality. However, that's not true. If we were to look at the statistics, a lot of people do not actually participate, and that is not the government's job. Whether someone chooses to participate or not happens to be on that singular individual. So making the assumption that just because someone is not economically advanced compared to somebody else would be a hasty generalization, making that a logical fallacy, and therefore showing that political inequality only happens when an individual does not participate, and we cannot hold accountable the government for such things. Now, going back again, the Supreme Court's job is to follow and uphold our Constitution, and our Constitution goes back to our founding fathers. So the true democratic ideals are hidden behind that Constitution, and by breaking down income inequality that has existed since our founding fathers founded the Constitution, that would be incredibly going against democratic ideals. So technically, by breaking income inequality, we would be going against our Constitution, which would be going against our democratic ideals, making the whole argument invalid. That's all. Now, if the whole argument is invalid, then there's no other vote than to vote negative today. Of course, because we're looking at the resolution. Now, of course, the opponent argued that in future statistics, the income inequality would happen to be greater. However, that's an appeal to the future, and we do not really know what could happen in the future. Now, if we look at the past, we can see that other societies that have happened to eradicate income inequality have fallen into a horrible state of economic depress. Now, we look, for example, at the places with huge economic inequalities, and we look at, for example, at China, and we see how successful they are. For example, their industries are important. They are big associates to the United States of America. So clearly, income inequality is essential to a healthy economy. And if we want a healthy economy, we keep our citizens happy. And if we keep our citizens happy, we are truly upholding the democratic ideals of the Constitution, because the Constitution was made to uphold all of the desires of the people. Now, if making that clear, that would mean that all of the arguments made by the affirmative would only be proving that indeed democratic ideals would be upheld by the negative today. So therefore, if there should be any other vote than to vote negative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to let David carry on with our rebuttal speech now. Just let us make sure, if you can't hear, just let us know. Okay, go ahead, David.
Okay, so in your first argument, you said that China is a country with great wealth inequality, but it has provided great success for them. And yet you also compared that more equal opportunity is given when there is more wealth inequality in the United States, which, as we have shown through the statistics Gunit pointed out, it has fallen 17% in the past 65 years. The opportunity for growth and for rising through the social and economical ranks. Let's go. Also, you said that the myth of wealth inequality growing greater, you mentioned that he added up all the households totals to show that the, in fact, increase was not about 3%, but about 12%. By adding up all, you're including the 1%, which the 1% have grown exponentially when compared to the middle class and the lower class. Additionally, you said that it was up to the singular individual as to why they did not vote. Well, you have to look at the reasons why they did not vote. In fact, in some polls, they wrote that they felt alienated because all the politicians are representing the upper class. And going off of a point that Gunit made, most of the politicians do spend a large amount of time simply just campaign or trying to raise funds for themselves and their parties, which leads to them, first off, spending most of their time not doing the jobs they were elected to do. And second, considering that the people that they would most likely be asking for money are the upper class, it means that they're going to be more susceptible to hearing the upper class's problems and trying to solve them, which means that nearly all politicians will prioritize the upper class because they are the ones who are funding them. Additionally, in terms of choice, the ability to give for super PACs and for corporations to give extremely large amounts of money to certain candidates, in fact, gives more power to private individuals in the political realm and it it gives more power to private individuals in the public realm compared to others, which is clearly undemocratic, giving one person more power over another in an unelected position. Same with, say, the Electoral College. They are appointed positions, in some of which don't even have to vote for what the majority of the population has voted for, and can choose to support whichever candidate they want to, which clearly takes away the agency of all those voters and therefore the citizens. Additionally, with bills that pass that make it harder and harder for individuals to vote, again, going back to your saying that it was up to the singular individual not to vote, again, some people like the homeless or the Aboriginals in northern communities, the government has made it virtually impossible for them to vote because they cannot obtain the identification necessary in order to vote. Now, this is said to be to prevent voter fraud, but first off, voter fraud is extremely, extremely rare. Almost never happens, and if it does, that is why we have the Federal Elections Commission, which job is to prevent fraudulent voting. So that just shows that the real reason for introducing the bill was just even more isolation for poor voters. Additionally, most higher up government positions have salaries that are much higher than the average wage in each of our two countries. This means that any politician who gets into that realm, even if they weren't rich before, which is nearly impossible to get into a position if you do not already have money, as Guni has said, due to the extraordinary costs it requires just in order to run. It means that they are now part of that one upper class, and they would more likely support things that go for their class, that group, which means that they are not representing their constituents in the political realm. And additionally, there are really only, in Canada, 3 possibly, and in America, 2 choices that you can have for the leader of your country, which both come from huge organizations with lots of funding and lots of corporate funding, which shows that there's a huge lack of choice, essentially meaning that if you only have a choice of 3 people out of which one represents your views the most, because it's nearly impossible to simply run a campaign while also representing, say, a middle or lower class.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just yield the floor.
I yield the floor.
Okay, so that's the end of our speech. Oh, sorry. Please carry on.
Okay. So.
Interruption. Jesus Nevares, please
Sorry.
report to the main office. If you are still on campus, Jesus Nevares, please report to the main office.
To one of the arguments that you made, you actually made, please cross by all my past points. But one of the first arguments that you made was that there was a decrease, there was an increase in the income inequality. However, I will later on prove that there was actually a decrease. Now, if rich people do indeed lose, as you said, the opportunity, we're not only taking away their rights of personal and property, but that would be unconstitutional. And again, concerning your argument over how the Supreme Court is there, again, that just proves my point. You cannot take away the rights of these people. These people have worked hard, and instead of generating new opportunities, you're going to be taking away motivation and innovation in our country. Now, equality is not a value but a condition. We cannot make everyone equal because no one is the same. Sure, everyone is made the same, but no one is born the same. So therefore, you cannot prove that equality can be reached. Now, going on, the Electoral College actually just proves my point. Again, why? Because Electoral College happens to come from the Constitution. So if we were to focus again on the Constitution, you can clearly see that that would just come back to my point. That is part of the democratic ideals. Why? Because the Constitution happens to be built around democratic ideals. Now, you bring an argument over a bill once again. So are you contradicting yourself? It happens to be that the Supreme Court is happens to handle the bills. So if you were to go against the Supreme Court, you would just be once again going on proving my point. Now, you say that you bring choices, but let's say that you bring 2 or 3 choices concerning the type of people that we can choose in our country to control our government. However, once again, going back to my point, political inequality only happens when people fail to participate. Now, once again, political inequality is not necessarily detrimental. On the country, some elements of political inequality are necessary for a well-structured and incentivized political system. Much like in economic outcomes, inequality as a result is justifiable. Those who actively engage in the political system and seek to shape political outcomes rightfully have a louder voice in politics, which happens to be how it happens today. However, as again, that's all democratical, so that would all fall under democratic ideals. And once again, we cannot look at the choices that you've happen to bring up because we're just focusing on the resolution, and the resolution states whether or not wealth inequality is detrimental to democratic ideals, which I have shown time after time that no, indeed, the better you argue, the more you're actually onto my point. Why? Because all the points that you brought up concerning the Supreme Justice and the bills passed by the Supreme Justice, they all point to the Supreme Court focusing on the Constitution. Now, we'll go back again. The Supreme Court's job is to uphold and make sure that our democratic ideals are still intact. So going back, and now cross-apply all of my previous logic. Without a value intact, it becomes impossible for the affirmative to win this round. Now, the affirmative, of course, brought in the value that equality is supposed to be met. However, equality cannot be met, as again, it's just a simple value, but not a condition, and nobody can be equal. Again, restating back to my past point where I stated that everyone's made the same, but nobody's born the same. So therefore, equality can never be reached. Now, without criteria intact, it becomes impossible for the affirmative to measure their value. And again, considering the fact that the democratic ideals ensure the well-being of everyone for everyone, then of course you cannot go against the Constitution, which in this case happens to be the main argument. Now, apply my value governmental stability to a true test. Does a democracy need to be supported or undermined when citizens vote? Again, citizens vote, and of course the electoral college goes to my point because of course electoral college comes from democratic ideals, so therefore you cannot say that electoral college would be against democratic ideal because it's part of the democratic ideal. And when contention was not attacked along with subpoint A and subpoint B. Now, Lincoln-Douglas debate was created by the NFL in the early 1980s and was supposed to be a debate that made sense. The speeches were short and they were to support values. Now let's take a look at 2 cases. The affirmative should have you believe that some of how wealth inequality is bad. That's what the affirmative is trying to resolve today. However, they neglected to tell you that 100 years ago, Mr. John D. Rockefeller's family controlled 2% of the wealth in our country. Today, the top 15 families have only control of 1%. That is a decrease of a top family 50%, but also instead of the family controlling 2%, you now have 15 families controlling only 1%, or a decrease of 1,500%. Therefore, throwing out the argument that the increase in income inequality exists, because clearly it is a decrease. Go back 100 years ago, and you can see that the 2% has now become a 1% and has been spread out in 15 families. Therefore, I sincerely ask for you to vote negative. Thank you.
Okay, Great. Well, we've had our two speeches. We don't have a third speaker today, unfortunately. So, but again, I don't know. Did you guys didn't prepare a third speech? I assume you said the two, right? You guys are muted, so I can't hear you at all.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Right.
Yes. Okay. Okay, that's fine. That's great. Yeah. So that was a good one.
Mr. Cunningham wants to know, what do you think of our political, or what?
What do you think about our elections?
I think it's awesome. I wish we had this much excitement up north. No, I've been watching. We've all actually been watching. We have a Sisler political youth group in our school, and we've been watching it very closely because it is truly. I pointed out to Mr. Cunningham the other day. Am I muted? Oh, he's muted. That we laughed about Trump less than 6 months ago at our last debate, and we were laughing about how ridiculous it was, and now here we are, and it's not ridiculous anymore. It's but actually for Manitoba, it's exciting political times because we actually have a provincial election occurring in about 2 weeks. We're going to have a change. We almost certainly will have a change of political power in the next 2 weeks in our province. The NDP, which is basically your version of the Democrat Party, is going to get really just completely obliterated in this election. And the Progressive Conservative, which I would say is definitely center of your Republican Party, but at least closer to the right, is poised to win. They actually currently have 60% in the latest polls. So there's going to be a really big swing to the right in our province.
Well, is Manitoba as conservative as Alberta?
No. We've had an NDP left-leaning government for 17 years.
Oh my gosh.
It's going to be a big change for us. And it's ironic because Alberta just elected an NDP government, so they just swung to the left.
Yeah.
Saskatchewan had an election 2 days ago, and they kept their independent Saskatchewan party. So it's like, I don't know if you guys have particular state parties that are run as independents.
Yeah. Well, we got Bernie Sanders that kind of runs as an independent, and he's a socialist from Vermont. But
no, I saw him win Wisconsin. We're all interested to see how New York turns out.
Yeah, I bet if one was making a prediction, I would assume that he may defeat Hillary in New York.
Hey, Mike, the most he has to hope for is an open, what is it when you have it in the summer, in July?
Convention?
An open, no, when you decide on.
There'll be an open floor fight. But see, you're speaking about democratic ideals, and one of the things that's really kind of tricky about this is that we're not really a democracy, nor do we really promote democratic ideals. Vis-a-vis, you can look at our conventions. Democratic convention, they have these super delegates.
Oh, I know. We've been looking at that. Yeah, for sure.
Hillary's been being defeated like by 30, 40, 50 points.
Yeah.
And she ends up with as many or almost as many delegates as Bernie Sanders does. That's kind of odd, when you think about it. If you take away the sheer super delegates, it's like 1,200 and something to almost 1,100. So it's well close to each other. Now, in Trump's case, each state is really almost an entity into itself. Now, in New York, it's going to be doing a week from Tuesday, I believe. Their vote will be strange because if you make over 50% of the vote, you'll get all the delegates. So he could maybe pick up 100% of the delegates. And then he'd be right back in business for that 1237. So I don't know. I know that they're having a lot of protests in New York over at Cruz right now. And Cruz happens to be our senator, so.
Oh, yeah, that's right, he is. And he's born in Calgary.
I was going to say, this is.
You're welcome.
We're defending one of your own people.
Well, I don't even know what to say, man. It's It's pretty wild, and it's funny. What's really funny about your country and ours is you guys have a primary election that's like so big, the news cycle, and we actually are having a federal leadership election in the New Democratic Party, who are a national leadership convention, and it actually is getting voted on next week, and it probably won't even make like the back pages anywhere. And they actually formed the official opposition last year. But there it's much more closed system. There's not as much political participation, so a leader getting selected is just like, it can get dicey, but it certainly doesn't make the ripples that your primary elections do.
I think, you know, like they say, it's all kind of like a wrestling match. You know, everybody's arguing, or a hockey game, but it may be already predetermined. So, you know, they just lay out and have the circuit. I know, which is really hauntingly strange, and I'd like to ask some of your students. Many of my students really like Bernie Sanders. However, you know, they think that, I don't know about Brissa, I haven't really talked to Brissa, but some of her friends are really into Bernie Sanders. And he's enjoying popularity like 85 or 90%, especially going around advocating this free college. Well, the problem is that the cost of free college for many of these young kids may be insurmountable, because they're going to be paying for everybody to college. It may not be a good quality college. And, you know, there's a lot of things that people need to vote on other than just thinking what's best for them.
Dave's a Bernie supporter.
Okay. Not in the sense that I'm like, oh, 100%. I just think he's the best out of the ones that could possibly be better.
Okay, now, are you saying that because the other people are really bad, or are you saying that because Bernie is actually good?
I think maybe a little bit of both.
Okay, you know, I think that's what ends up happening, and what's really going to be crazy is that you can make a very strong contention for something like this happening, like in the Democratic side. If Bernie keeps on winning, and he, let's say, wins New York and he wins a couple other states, Hillary does not get enough votes to actually clinch the nomination. Many of the superdelegates will get kind of hesitant, and then all of a sudden there'll be a white knight or somebody else that we don't really know or see right now come in and become the nominee. You know, maybe Biden, maybe Kerry, maybe somebody else. I don't know if that doesn't throw everybody really upset, because it's so unlike the process. It's much more like Canada, where you don't get to see all the stuff ahead of you. I don't know if we can ever go backwards again, is what I'm saying.
I think that and it probably is not even possible at this stage, but sometimes in my imagination, I think the healthiest thing for American democracy from an outside perspective, well, American democracy, the American Republican system, that you'd have that, say, Clinton and Cruz win, or say Clinton and Trump win the nominations, that Cruz and Sanders just turn around and both run as independents, and you have a 4-person race. Because then you'd have a greater selection of leadership to decide from. I mean, Canada always has at least 5 or 6 people, party leaders, vying for the prime ministership. I can't think that wouldn't be terrible for you to maybe, it would shake things up, you know what I mean? Like to have all 4 candidates still running for the presidency.
Yeah, I mean, we could just have permanent elections here, and it would be, you know, like social media and stuff would be really good.
Yeah.
Just love it. And then maybe we were ready for Kanye and Kim Kardashian and them to be running the next 4 years, you know.
I know. Well, yeah.
It's really kind of weird, because I think we start worrying more about personalities or who not to vote for than we are worried about, you know, solutions. And I don't think we're going to end up with too good of solutions if we.
We have Trudeau right now. You don't have to tell us about appearances. Yeah. the prettiest prime minister in NATO.
Yeah, you know, you being a former NATO person, what do you think about United States trying to pull out of NATO, or
I don't. Well, I don't. I don't blame them. I don't blame the. What I've always said. I understand the disenchantment with NATO and with the UN for that matter. And because even General Hillier, who led the Canadian forces in Afghanistan for several years, and he was our chief of defense staff, and he said, yeah, NATO and UN are clearly paralyzed. But the one argument I have back, and I'm sure it's a logical fallacy of some kind, but is that you can imagine the UN is complicit and as paralyzed as it is, but imagine a world where it doesn't exist, and all the harm that may exist had it not been there, were it not in the Sinai or Congo or whatever else it is. I think the world would be a much more unstable place without it.
Yeah, you're arguing a false you're arguing to prove a negative, which is impossible to do. But there's something wrong vividly if your only support it is to try to prove a false negative. That's I don't know, because the problem is when it ends up coming to money or cost benefit analysis, even if you're burning and you decide that you want to start putting all kinds of spending on domestic, you're going to have to take it from something. And one of the easiest grabs would always be all the foreign, the amount of money that the United States spends foreign without getting a whole lot of bang for their buck is tremendous, you know.
Well, I detected the ghost of Milton Friedman in a lot of your arguments.
I think it's going to be wrong, and I think it's very short-sighted, but I think that's one of the grabs that people are going to get.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I was just watching some Milton Friedman videos on YouTube, and then I heard your debater actually state about the impossibility of pure equality and some born with disadvantages, etc. And it's a very persuasive argument, and it's one that frame of that school of thought puts forward. And I mean, it's beyond really. It's almost unfalsifiable that, of course, people are not born equal. But yeah,
I ask another question, because Ted Cruz was big into these conspiracy theories at one time.
Probably.
Do you think the United States, Mexico, and Canada would ever become one big country?
I think the only thing that would, well, I don't think you take on the burden of Mexico. And I lived in Mexico for a year. And I just know the U.S. would never do it. And I don't think Canada, I mean, if Canada was pliable enough to become the 51st state, as it were, I think the Quebec referendum would have been successful in 1995. And I mean, Quebec tried to separate. If the nation itself were as pliable as to lose a province, then we would say we're pliable enough to become part of the U.S. But in that,
thinking if all things start breaking down and we have some sort of economic slide like people are projecting, and say that Quebec decides all of a sudden we're going to jettison, the last vestiges of, for the French and non-French take over Quebec, we're going to make it a French area and get out of Canada. Do you think that the United States would try to, we combine to make one kind of country? Because there's a lot of people who think that that's what the powers to be want. I don't know if that's the case or not, but the way we're running civilization, I almost wonder.
Yeah. I think the only way it could happen is, for some years now, there's been a bit of a Western coalition with kind of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia, considering the possibility of coalescing essentially as a Western Union, much like the Maritimes thought they would for a while until they went bankrupt, until we got really poor. But the Western coalition has all this money, and if they separated, I wouldn't put it past them to also be open to the idea of annexation to the U.S.
Wow.
But it would only happen in the West.
Right. And what happened to the prairie states?
Well, see, that's the thing. This West idea kind of starts at Saskatchewan. Manitoba is weird. It's like it's kind of an outlier province because the West never really wants us because we really don't have the natural resources. The other ones do. And we've been NDP for so long. And it's weird. The West really doesn't start, at least in kind of the Canadian imagination, until Saskatchewan. It's just bizarre regional peculiarities like you guys have, right? But The Prairie Province in Manitoba, yeah, we've just been a have-not province for so long. We just are really lacking in natural resources to make us an equal partner to the other Western provinces, except maybe our hydropower, our hydro. That's about it. We don't have a lot to bring to the table, really, except for awesome high schools.
I mean, you have a good school system. And speaking about that, you sent down that deal. How's the money situation for your schools?
It's actually quite bad right now. Oh yeah, that thing I told you about. Yeah, no, that was games. That was all brinksmanship. In the end, what happened was they cut some things that if you saw what they agreed to cut, and they acted like they were really doing a big effort to make these cuts, but when you read about them, they were just, it was ludicrous they were considering spending it. And they of course found the money. Of course they balanced their budget because they were forced to, but we have a very antiquated system of funding public education in Manitoba. We're the only province in the whole country. We fund our education based on the property taxes of the properties within the divisions of the school divisions.
Yeah, see, we do the same thing, and we end up with rich schools and poor schools, and then what they do is they rob the rich and give to the poor. So the problem is you could have poor people in a rich school.
Yeah.
Be property poor, and then our school district is at the verge of, we have probably 90-some% of the people on free and reduced lunch. So we're very socioeconomically not as well off, but we have a lot of businesses, although businesses don't pay at the same level. So we could be property rich, but income poor.
Yeah, no, we're, as far as it goes, the divisions, it's really weird, and we don't transfer payments. So, for example, Pembina School Division, which is north of this school division, has way more money than this school division.
Oh,
and then half of Manitoba is a lot of Aboriginal, and we made that argument in the debate, the Aboriginal communities in the northern Manitoba, they're all federally funded.
Oh, yeah.
They come from a totally different money supply, but the children are often very transient, moving from city back to reserve and back and forth again. And they often get double funded because they'll go to a band school in the north and get funded federally, and then they move to the city, get funded provincially, and then move back to the reserve again. And so it's it can be quite chaotic in terms of.
Now, for a teacher, like teacher salary, is there a wide range of difference between like your school and maybe neighboring schools that have more money? Or is it?
It's not too bad. Educators are pretty well compensated. I think we're paid quite well. Yeah.
There's a wide variance here in Texas between the rich and poor. We have a state minimum, and many people are at the minimum. And then you can pay as much as you want to, but we have some in the large cities are making like $30,000 and $40,000 difference between.
Whoa.
Yeah.
No.
And even with our dollar being weak, it's still a big deal, you know.
No, most teachers in Canada start at about 50 a year and cap out at about 80 or 90.
Yeah. See, we will probably start here at our school district in the mid 40s. And then tap out about 60, but the minimum state minimum's in the 30s. So you know, if you're in Dallas or Houston, you might be making 80 where the minimum is 30. So there's a wide variance of differences.
Wow. Yeah. No. No, we don't have that. I mean, I would say, as many problems as we have, I prefer our educational system to the federal system. You do have state schools, but that you have that kind of like a national union for your educators.
We're kind of weird. We have states that the state controls everything, but the federal government controls it with the purse string, so they tell the states kind of what to do. And the states are gone on this Common Core, so we have a curriculum in which everyone has to be on the same page. Texas isn't one of those states, so we are pretty fortunate in some areas. Now, are you doing that resource deal at the end of the month, that debate thing again?
Yeah, I gotta respond to that email. We'd like to do it for sure.
And we are When do you get out of school this year?
30 June.
Wow. And when do you go back? In September?
Yeah. Yeah, we just do July, August. That's our summer.
Yeah, that's about where we are too. We're trying to do a couple things before we clean up. You want to try to do something before we leave in June or no?
Yeah, certainly. Actually, I'm sure you remember Philip. He debated a few of the debates, and he actually, he's graduating this year, so he wanted to do another debate. And yeah, I got a few grade 12s that are getting out. I mean, they're graduating, so they would like to do one more go. But yeah, we'll have to do a topic of some kind.
Yeah, why don't you pick the topic and the side, and we'll just join in, okay? So
That's good.
that'll be their last hurrah, so they can pick the side and the topic they want to do.
Okay, yeah, I'll put it to them. They ought to think of it anyway.
Donald Trump or something, you know?
What did you say? Oh, Trump, yeah. I don't know. I'm so I don't even know what to think, man. It's crazy. Whatever. It's just
Hey, I tell you what, if you ever listen to his campaign speeches,
I as much as I could tolerate on YouTube.
yeah, well, you know, if you ever listen to him live, it's you may not believe it, but it is kind of nice and refreshing just to have people talk unscripted without reading statements out that it may not make sense, but they're at least more human than some people, you know, make the same statements, you know.
He is very visceral. I'll give him that much.
Yeah, it's a crazy.
Well, there are some people that really, I mean, the media may report Canada's lock, stock, and barrel anti-Trump, but it's not really the case. There are many Canadians up here that are sympathetic to his views, and especially in terms of just being basically right of center. I mean, you don't have to go far in Alberta. Even in Quebec, you get a lot of, there's a quite a considerable right-wing presence there.
I would assume that there's a lot of people, he's pretty centrist, especially for a Republican. He's very a liberal Republican. That's why he's getting a lot of the blowback. But, you know, I don't know. I don't think that you can be so conservative that you start pointing fingers at everybody and saying how bad everybody else is without getting a whole lot of trouble yourself.
Yeah, no, he just,
Well,
I said to a colleague today that I consider, from my perspective, it's like Trump is like a mercenary demagogue, but Cruz is like an ideological demagogue,
yeah.
which I think are more dangerous.
Yeah, okay. You won't get too much disagreement here. The problem is, I think Trump would pivot. I'm not so sure Cruz would.
Yeah, no, I don't even know. It's
kind of a hard deal. Well, let me know, Andrew, and we'll be glad to work with you whenever you want to. Monday, Thursday is probably the best for us, but any day of the week, but Friday and Wednesday would be great.
Yeah, no, we'll Monday, Thursday. I will hit our guys up, probably Thomas, Philip, maybe even Gunit. Dave needs a break. Dave wants to go.
I'd go again.
And we'll come up with a topic.
Yeah, we can do it in English or French too. I mean, English, French, or Spanish.
Oh yeah, I do have some French students actually. I have some Latin students.
That's for a while.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta shut her down over here. I'm reading. There's a janitor actually. So I'm gonna close it down for now.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.